all started out last year on a permission piece that my dad and I hunt together. A piece that we were getting pictures of a ton of 3.5-year-old bucks, having encounters with all these deer, just great bucks that needed one more year, and if any of them survive, they're gonna turn into something special. But the first few weeks of gun season roll around, and a lot of these bucks are getting killed and disappearing off the property. And it was December 13th, my dad decided to do a hanging hunt deep in the swamp, and he actually had the first encounter with this buck, just a wide 8-point with big sweeping brow tines, and he had busted everything else off. It was just brow tines and main beams. But we knew that only a few more weeks, if this buck stays on his property, he's gonna make it to next year. Flash forward to this year, we got our cameras out first week of September, and a couple weeks go by, we're just waiting for our first picture, and then finally we got a picture of this buck, and we were super excited about what he turned into. It's October 28th. It is Friday morning. Got back last night, hunted the same property. Saw a lot of does and a little buck. I'm back in the woods where I hunted last weekend. All the leaves are gone now. I can see quite a bit. It's 36 degrees this morning. Really high pressure. It's like 30.48. So it's like you can't ask for anything better. But it is very calm. There's like no wind. So I've been testing my wind. It's pretty good, blowing it kind of where I want it. It's a little borderline, but gotta be in here. I feel like this is a place to be. We got pictures of, I don't know, that was 2 nights ago or last night. No, 2 nights ago. We got pictures of brow tine buck, the 9-point, and a new 8-point, all in the same night. So they're around here somewhere. It's gonna be a good morning. We're gonna sit for quite some time. I'm gonna sit till at least 10, probably past that. It's time of year to be in the stand, so we'll see what happens. Ended up having a real cool encounter with this 3.5-year-old 9-point, but Mr. Twister was a no-show. Now it's November 4th, and we got some strong winds. I'm going to try and sneak into one of our best stands in the woods for an evening hunt. It's 5:45. I got in here. As you know now, that the target buck was bedded in this woods about 100 yards from me. I snuck in. He's been bedded with a doe for over an hour now. He's got up a few times to bump some little bucks off. see what happens. He ended up staying about 100 yards away the whole night. He was not leaving that doe. And then finally he got up and ended up breeding that doe about 100 yards away. And then they started making their way away from me to the south. And I gave him one last grunt and a snort wheeze, but I just couldn't pull him off that doe. Now it's November 9th and my dad and I are hunting this property together. He's at our funnel stand where the deer access the woods and I'm in the woods. And we're hoping today's the day that Mr. Twister makes this mistake. It's November 9th. I came back last night for my dad's birthday, and I had to vote. We had some north winds for a couple days while I was gone, and we got another back to south. So I'm in the same stand that I've been hunting over here in the woods. We had Mr. Twister. I think we had him on camera a few days ago. But then we got a picture of a really big 8-point, like a for sure shooter. Broke his left brow tine though. Yesterday we got a picture of him at 340. I can't sit very long today. I got an exam at 2, so I gotta get down at like 11 to head back to school. But it should be a good sit. I watched our field last night behind our house and it was crazy. I saw 6 bucks and they were running all over the place. This morning I've seen 4 does. I had 2 under me, like before light, and then I can see 2 far away right now. So we'll see what happens. 30 yards for me. And I shot him, and it looked like I hit him really good. But he took off and ran like 100 yards, and I didn't see him go down, so that's crazy. My dad and I both, this is gonna be fun. I'm reviewing the footage right now, trying to figure out where exactly my dad hit him. I'm gonna take my time because I'm shaking so bad right now. Take my time and get out of here. So we got down and headed back to the house to review the footage and call some friends to help track. We watched the film over and over again, and you can see where my dad hits the buck, and then after he goes out of my frame and I shoot and I flip the camera back on him, you can see where I actually hit the buck too, which looked like just a couple inches lower than my dad's shot. So we were thinking the whole time, these gotta be 2 fatal hits and this deer's dead somewhere. So we ended up going to where I saw the buck exit the woods and go into the pines, and we found some blood, and we started tracking it into the pines and got about 15 yards and couldn't find any more blood. It was just because all the pine needles on the ground, it was so hard to find blood. But my dad and I are both thinking we made a fatal shot on this deer, so we ended up grid searching. We grid searched for a couple hours and no luck. So later that day, we're scrambling, trying to figure out what we should do next. And we ended up calling a dog out, and we know that we grid searched it, so it's going to be real hard for the dog to pick up on a scent. But the dog picked up on a set of tracks and followed it a long ways, but no dead buck. The next day, my dad and I went back out. We ended up getting permission on the 3 neighboring properties, and we just walked for hours. We searched everywhere for Mr. Twister, and just no sign. But we weren't giving up yet. The next day, so this would end up being day 3, we have an uncle that has a drone, and he ended up bringing his drone out because there's one piece that we couldn't really search. It's a super thick, grown-up field, nasty briars everywhere. You can't walk in it. So we ended up flying that drone all over that, and still no sign of Mr. Twister. So it's Sunday, day 4, and my dad and I believe that we just didn't get enough penetration to kill the deer. It's Sunday evening, I'm heading back to school, and I actually just got to school, and I get a text message from my dad that's a picture of a dry arrow and a caption that reads, "The saga continues." So I get on the phone with my dad, and he's telling me the story. The landowner called him and said the farmer's picking the corn, and he bumped up the buck, bedded with another buck, and he said he's not doing very well. So my dad goes over there, and the farmer points him right to where the buck had went into a strip of pines. So my dad does a big loop around, and he's stalking through the pines, and he sees Mr. Twister coming right at him. So he gets down on one knee, and he's waiting, and Mr. Twister ends up being 40 yards looking right at him, and he draws back, and he's just trying to put an arrow in him, and as soon as he lets go of the release, he starts to turn, and the arrow flies right over his back. So now we know Mr. Twister's still alive, and we gotta do everything we can to get this deer killed. The next day, day 5, we ended up getting a picture of him at 12:50 in the morning heading towards the woods. 2 days later, it's November 15th, opening day of gun season here in Michigan. I was able to hunt that morning, and then I had to go back to Kalamazoo for school. But at about 4 o'clock, I get a call from my dad saying Mr. Twister's finally dead. He actually was found dead by our buddy Ray, who hunts the neighboring property, who actually just shot a buck and was tracking his buck and found Mr. Twister frozen in the woods. Mr. Twister's story didn't end exactly the way my dad and I wanted it to, but it was such a fun and challenging deer to hunt this year, and it was just so cool to have a buck that we passed up last year, and it survived through this year and came back to the same property, and we were able to hunt it as a 4.5-year-old buck. And that's just what we're trying to do each year here in Michigan. Thanks for watching, and stay tuned for more episodes on RID Outdoors.